Good morning, everybody. You know that Wile E. Coyote rush. You've got a great victory right in front of you. You see the roadrunner. You got your blinders on. You're running right straight for it. And then reality hits. Like running into a wall. Or a fall. It's a long way down. Look, a decade ago, I knew that Wile E. Coyote rush. We had everything going for us. We had lots of wins. We had the money we needed to operate. We had built a cross-party team with the former Senate president and the former inspector general of the state of Massachusetts, both Democrats who had joined our team, were on all the right boards, and a former Pioneer Institute executive director was just elected governor of Massachusetts. Now, I'll tell you, look, we had a charmed life from our founding for the first 3 decades. The fact is, successive governors hired our folks, took our ideas, and implemented 24 tax cuts to put a stake in the heart of the Taxachusetts moniker. We were, within literally 15 years of our founding, at the top or near the top of all economic rankings, state by state. We're pulling lots of money. We're hot. Boston was a hot city. We had the most important charter sector in the country and the most important education reform in the country. And then there's this thing called 2016. Time just passes. And we wanted to go after a charter school cap lift. A big deal. And we put our blinders on and we ran right straight for it. And we went over the ledge. We lost big. And after that, the victory slowed. They weren't strategic anymore. They're just little tactical wins. And, I asked myself, why did we not see that coming? And the fact is, we were comfortable. We're doing the same thing we'd always done. We thought we had success before. We get them again. I went to see, even a year later, Governor Baker. He was reelected. He's a big, tall guy. And I'm saying, oh, God, what do we do in the next term to have an even better term? And he looks down at me like, and not really looking down, he's looking sideways, like, who's this crazy person? Fact is, he said, the legislature has changed. We're only going to stop bad things, pal. And finally, in my pea brain, the light went off. I said, 3 decades of Republican governors working with blue dog Democrats to advance a high-powered economy, education reform, it is over. The world had changed. Now, we could have blamed Governor Baker and said, look, you got to put on your Superman cape, and you got to come in, swoop in, and save the day from the executive branch, but we did not do that. We blamed ourselves, and we got to work to change ourselves. Now, you heard from others earlier today about how much learning and what the durable freedom infrastructure looks like here. It is an amazing journey to create that, and we had you to learn from. I know many of you are sick and tired of my phone calls asking about, ballot initiatives and business associations and litigation arms. Sometimes I wonder, why is it so hard for us to change? I mean, after all, we like free markets, right? We like creative destruction. We like risk-taking, and yet we don't do enough of it ourselves. On that front, we had SPN to lean on. Our friend Lynn Harsh came in and spent a couple of days with our board and staff, and she pushed us. And she asked us 2 fundamental things that I would ask you to think about. First, what is the one thing you want to win on? And what are you willing to get rid of in order to focus on that? And the second thing is, are you willing to fail? Because as Lynn put it, if you're not willing to fail, you're not going to win big. Now, most not-for-profit boards don't really get that. Ours did, our staff did. We were excited by the challenge to transform who we were. So starting in 2020, we changed everything at Pioneer. First thing, we had a number of issues we worked on. We were hungry to work on issues. And we said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We are going to focus on 3 things. Our mission is to give people choices and opportunities in education, healthcare, and economics so they can realize their full potential. But on the other side, as we narrowed our focus and scope, we expanded the number of tools that we put into place to drive impact. So from you and your litigation centers, we learned and launched the Pioneer Legal Foundation under the leadership of former federal judge Frank Bailey. In just 3 years, we've won numerous cases on school choice, government transparency, and economic freedom. And we've also been in front of the Supreme Court a couple of times. Great stuff in just 3 years. But if you ask Judge Bailey, why'd you leave the court, a comfortable place, to come to Pioneer, where we're kind of a skunk works. We've got 20 people working for us. He's got some great people down the hall who are research experts. We've got a good board, good staff, but it's not like being a judge where you walk into the room and everybody stands. It's a little different. He'll tell you he's lucky. And the reason is he gets to represent people like Carmen Rodriguez, a Worcester homeowner. For 37 years, she worked in a factory, and then she got sick, and she faced a stark choice. Do I make the final payments on my mortgage, or do I pay my property taxes? Of course she chose the mortgage. And the city of Worcester came in within a year and said, Carmen, guess what? That $300,000 home you have, we're going to take it. Even though your tax debt is no more than $3,700, basically what you'd spend on a sit-down lawnmower. That's where Frank came in. Many of you come in, and especially our friends at the Pacific Legal Foundation. The Hennepin case was a linchpin, but a lot of state action after that to make sure she stayed in her home, together with dozens and dozens of other people in Massachusetts, and hundreds, if not thousands, across the country. But we also wanted to mirror the successes you've had with political advocacy. And here, I guess you'd say that chasing the Roadrunner is never a straight path, because we tested out a 501c4, and what we realized quickly is we're a highly regulated state. Business leaders fear the repercussions from political leadership, so they applauded all of our efforts, but we could only raise $500,000, not nearly enough to go big. So what we did is we pivoted, and we shuttered the 501c4, and I went hat in hand looking for business associations with whom we could partner to create a 501c6 business alliance, a much friendlier sort of organization for business leaders. We picked up 2, and we started something called the Mass Opportunity Alliance, the mission of which is to unify the business community and to fight for our lives in Massachusetts. We're one of the few states that actually has increased taxes, unlike what Tracy was saying before. Our first year anniversary is coming up next week, and in this 1 year, we've raised $4 million. We've built an army of tens of thousands of active followers, and our alliance now encompasses the largest employers in Massachusetts, plus more than 10,000 businesses represented by the retail, restaurant, tech, and small business associations. Look, that 2-day stint with Lynn Harsh transformed not only the organization, but our own way of thinking about the work that we do. And I'll highlight just 4 quick characteristics that we cling to. Number 1, more focus. We invest much more deeply in far fewer priorities. Number 2, build the durable freedom infrastructure. Keep looking for ways to learn from this movement, and that's the 3rd one. Be humble and learn from this movement. There's lots of talent out here, lots of experiments. You can harvest that and bring it home. And 4th, plan, recruit well, but swing big. Don't be afraid to fail. Now look, this has led to a lot of great results for us on the ground, but it's also good for the bottom line. In 2020, we were a $2 million organization. We are today a $7 million organization. And if you include the Business Alliance, we are now deploying $11 million to advance our mission. Look, I'm not going to kid around with you folks. Working in Massachusetts sometimes feels like being in the desert, and transformation is a long and winding, dusty road. But there's one thing that we learned along the way that's truly a surprise, and that is we're actually not in the business of trying to give Wile E. Coyote more and better Acme tools. They never worked, right? What we want to be is the roadrunner, outpacing and outfoxing those who would stop us. So thank you for all the work you do. It's essential to the work that we do, and meep, meep.
Please welcome to the stage President at California Policy Center, Will Swaim.
Sometimes, the hero you really need is in the place you least expect it. 2 weeks ago, I take Mrs. Swaim out to a hamburger restaurant, and I excuse myself to go wash my hands because I'm like totally, nuts about germs. And I step into the men's room just in time to see a guy who first appears to be overserved. And I'm not a doctor, but I quickly diagnose that it's not alcohol. The guy appears to be having a seizure. He's slumped against a wall, and suddenly in this tiny room, this tiny space, there's total chaos. The guy is slumping down the wall, and he's shaking, and a guy steps over with his cell phone, and he is cursing because he can't get a signal to call 911. And I know, ladies, this is kind of going to come as a total shock to you, but one of the guys starts screaming. I have no idea what he's saying, but he is just like freaking out. I'm trying to help the guy slumped against the wall go, down to the floor more gently. A big guy steps out and says to me, this guy is towering. He's like the size of Dustin Hurst, if you know him. And he shouts with tremendous authority, "Let's carry him outside." Well, I've got two hands, and I want to do a thing, so I start to think, yeah, that sounds great. And suddenly this tiny man, like you could fit him in your pocket, he walks into the men's room, and without even looking at me, he says, "Give me your coat." I've been ordered to do a thing. I give him my coat. He makes it into a pillow, puts it under the guy's head. He tells the guy screaming, "Sir." He tells the guy with the phone, "Can you go outside and get a signal, please?" And he tells the gigantic guy, "Go to the bar and bring me a glass of orange juice." The big guy says, "Who the hell made you boss?" The little guy turns and says, 11 years of medical school. Please, orange juice. The big guy says, "You want some vodka in that, like a screwdriver?" And he says, "No, diabetic seizure, just the orange juice, please." Sometimes the hero you need is in the place you least expect it, even in a men's room. And that's the kind of story that it reminds me of a person we all know here in California, named Julie. Julie was an LA County mom with 3 kids, a husband, and she was a Democrat. She was a very, kind of avowed liberal. She voted for Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. In the gubernatorial races in California, she voted for Jerry Brown and then Gavin Newsom. 2020 comes along and Gavin Newsom locks down the economy. She's all for it at first. She's recruited or drafted in to become a teacher, sitting alongside her 3 boys, all of them on computers, all of them on Zoom, watching teachers, some of whom have their screens off. And what she sees there is so alarming. You've heard this story, right? Some of you experienced this. But what she hears is climate alarmism that keeps her kids awake at night, like, is the sun going to crash into the earth and burn us all alive, Mommy? She hears a kind of skepticism throughout all the lessons about what it means to be an American. Real skepticism and contempt for patriotism. She hears a kind of a weird sort of gender stuff that she had not really heard before that encourages her boys to think about themselves as enemies of the people. And that's when she realizes, forget about COVID. The real virus is in our curriculum. And she wonders, how the hell did it get this way? So she starts her search, very bright woman. She comes across our newsletter at California Policy Center, and she starts to find some answers. One of those answers is a kind of a solution. It directs her toward a group that we created called the Parent Union. This is an organization, not a union. You'll appreciate the euphemism, the nomenclature. You don't have to pay dues, and you're not forced. So she joins the Parent Union as a result of this newsletter. She attends her first Parent Union Summit in Sacramento. She meets scores of other parents, a lot of moms, who are equally ticked off. Many of them former self-avowed progressives, lefties, and Democrats. And they're all really inspired by this meeting together. They start to take action. She goes back home, and that's when she decides to take advantage of a next program that we've created called the California Local Elected Officials Program, a little deal that I picked up when I was a commie. Some of you know that story, another time, maybe at the bar. And what we did with this CLEO organization, as we call it, is we organized local elected officials. And we helped them understand the policy implications, the power, the tools available to them in their cities, their school districts, their counties. We also teach people how to run for those kinds of offices, and so Julie took that next step, took our candidate training, ran for school board in 2022, 2 years after she joined us for that, started reading our newsletter. She runs for the school board and she wins. The rest is not all glory. She is the one voice, it's LA County, remember? She's the minority voice on that board. But it still gives her this promontory, this dais, this pulpit, if you will, from which she can amplify California Policy Center's message about the problem of government unions. One of the things that Julie learned before she got on the board and has learned in spades on that board is the teachers union has money, they have volunteers, they are radical, and they are ready to take everything we've got. So when I think about how we need leaders and allies in California, I want to remind you, every statewide office is held by a Democrat up to the governor's office. The legislature is a supermajority. That means a veto-proof majority in Sacramento. We are not getting bills through that place or signed by that governor. We're locked out. We're also locked out of the media. There's not a newspaper in California that is anything but left of center, and the voter registration is so skewed to the left, 2-to-1 Democrats over virtually everybody else, with the most important feature of that demography being that most of those Democrats identify themselves as either socialists, progressives, or very liberal. So we're in a very tough state, and yet we still have this capacity, we all do, you just heard from Jim, we have this capacity to turn our former opponents, let's say generously, to turn them into our allies and to help them spread the word. I'll give you one more example here, and that's our guy, Ed Ring. Some of you know Ed. He was one of the founders of California Policy Center. He is such a wizard on the issues of energy and water and forest management and wildfires. He's got a weekly newsletter that goes out to thousands of local officials, water district officials, people who work for energy companies, that help them and help the media understand that LA's wildfires, for instance, if you were checked out in January, you may not know that we tried to burn down a third of the city and then completed the task during the ice events more recently. So in January, all this stuff is burning up, and the White House is ordered by Donald Trump to find out, what the hell is going on in California that this stuff is happening? And of course, if you read the newspapers, it's all about climate change. But the White House calls Ed Ring because they want the right answer. So President Trump invites Ed Ring to meet him, the only policy guy in the room, at a press conference in the burn zone, which is like a moonscape at this point, in late January, February. And Ed tells the president precisely what bad policies have led to this. It's not climate change, he tells the boss. It's really decades of bad environmental policy and progressive wisdom, if you will. So the president goes back to D.C. He starts talking Ed's policy line. This shocks the people in California who had no idea the man was that crazy. And the result is that millions of Americans got to hear what a guy in California, the California Policy Center, has been working on for 10 years, waiting for his moment, and then the moment arrived. So my request is that we all think about the outreach programs we can create to our fellow residents in our states, and look for the leaders. It may be that it's the little guy in a men's room, if you happen to be, visiting your local men's room for a medical emergency. It could be a former Democrat who 2 years after she votes for Gavin Newsom is working on our behalf to help educate parents about schools, about public schools, and about where the crazy curriculum comes from. But let me just finish with a story about that woman, Julie. Her name is Julie Hamill. Some of you may know her. She's remarkable. She's all over Fox News. She's been on CNN. Some of you probably saw that. She is just a machine on social media. She's also an attorney. And so our board chairman, Bob Lowen, who is a former litigator himself, recognizing that game respects game, asked Julie if she would come and help us with our newest project, the litigation center. We did not invent this, of course, not claiming that. Lots of other people have blazed the trail before us, but Julie came in and became our first president of our legal center. I could run down a list of accomplishments in less than a year that she's created for us, the most important one of which was that she sent a letter off to Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education, and within 30 days, Linda McMahon, acting on Julie's complaint about California schools and the curriculum and the violations of federal law therein, 30 days after Julie sends that letter to the Trump administration, to the Department of Education, they announced a federal investigation of California schools. We could not have achieved that on our own, could not have done that in state schools, could not have done that in any other way, but having the federal government, I'm talking to my libertarian friends out here, having the federal government enforce federal non-discrimination law. That's the power of finding the leaders through the programs you create. Now, there's one more little bit of Julie's story that I want to tell you about here. Julie Hamill is now, as of, gosh, what, Bob, a couple of days ago, is now the Deputy Civil Rights Attorney for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Central District of California, for those of you who are not familiar. Yeah, thank you. This is huge. The Central District of California includes a city you may have heard of called Los Angeles. So this quick trajectory, I'm not going to say it's common, it happens every day, but it's the work of all of my colleagues who are here. If you see somebody from California Policy Center, stop them proudly in the elevator at the bar. You'll most likely find them at the bar, or in the men's room, and ask us how we did this. And we didn't do this without lots and lots of inspiration from our friends at SPN. We're not acting alone. We need allies all over the state. And we've got them from north to south and from all over the country. People have come in to help California. But it's really us turning our former opponents into our allies and then helping them understand the freedom message. We're not asking them to change from Democrat to Republican or something like that, or to be in the Trump administration. We're asking them to do what they can in their neighborhoods. Sometimes the leader you need is right in front of you. Thanks, y'all.
Please welcome back CEO at Pelican Institute for Public Policy, Daniel Erspamer.
I don't know about you, but I won't be following Will into the men's room. You know, if you know me, or if you were listening 15 minutes ago, you know I love Louisiana. Whether it was my time at Tulane, or falling in love with my beautiful bride, or all the wonderful things that the state and the city have to offer. And I know you love your state too. That's why we do what we do. So I know I'm biased, but the truth is, Louisiana's a world-class state, or at least it should be. We have 5 of the top 15 ports in the country, the most active natural gas sector, nearly 20% of the nation's oil refineries. And people come here by the millions to enjoy our food and music and culture, which, again, you'll be able to experience yourself by attending State Night tonight. And you only need to look at things like the formation of the Cajun Navy, or even our congressional delegation, to know that our people are world-class too. So what's not world-class about Louisiana? Our public policy. Frankly, it's been bad for a long time, anchored by 100 years of Huey Long populism. So when I came back to Louisiana in 2017, after the passing of our friend and Pelican founder Kevin Kane, I knew it would be a heavy lift. We'd have to deal with a bloated and broken state constitution, high out-migration, stalled progress on education freedom, trial lawyers run amok, and a deeply entrenched status quo. And, you know, we always used to have Mississippi to make fun of, but by then even they'd passed us by on a few fronts. So bravo to Grant and Douglas out there and all of your teams. Don't clap for Mississippi. I'm kidding. So I'll never forget, at our very first strategic positioning meeting, our good buddy Todd Davidson pulled me out in the hallway away from the rest of the team. I gotta tell you, he said, this all seems pretty insurmountable. And I'm not really sure how you're gonna win anything. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. But I knew we had a secret weapon, and that was durable freedom infrastructure. I was convinced we had to build DFI, or else we risked all of the great policy solutions on which our team would work sitting on a shelf somewhere gathering dust. So in an early conversation with Pelican's board chair, Stephen Gillet, I said, listen, I think we have to swing for the fences. We may miss, let's be clear, but our state has too much potential not to go big with DFI. Now, I'm not sure if he really believed truly that we could do it, but all I needed was for him to take a chance, and he did. So from day one, we started by building out a durable freedom infrastructure, not just an effective think tank, and all of that work built toward the very moment of opportunity in which we find ourselves today. But it wasn't until I really got into doing this work that I realized something that I really want to acknowledge. Y'all, this work is hard. It's really hard. And there were days when I thought, forget it. Let's just do the best we can, build the best think tank we can, and hope for the best. I'll never forget the time I was sitting in the office. Early on, I was the only staff person, and I couldn't even get the office telephone to work. And I wasn't sure how I was going to accomplish this big vision. But then I remembered I wanted to prove Todd wrong. And so I got back to work. And I want to acknowledge, too, that it's even harder to go from reviewing a spreadsheet, cash flow spreadsheet, to make sure that you can make payroll on Friday, closing your laptop and walking into a major donor's office to share your big vision and ask for a transformational gift. It's hard, but it can be done. So since that hot summer of 2017, our team has raised and deployed $20 million toward building and mobilizing a durable freedom infrastructure to solve some significant problems and accomplish some meaningful wins. Staffers, thank you, or staffers for ourselves or advocacy organizations, there just wasn't that great bench. Enter the Pelican Leadership Academy. In the 6 years since the launch of the Academy, the Alumni Network has produced 4 state legislators fighting in the State House every day for these ideas, a number of high-ranking officials in the Landry administration, some of whom are here today, leaders in political parties, local government officials, and our advocacy partners, including even some staff for the Pelican Institute. And then, thanks to advice and help from folks like the Beacon Center and IJ and PLF and Goldwater and so many of you in the room, not to mention Louisiana's own experience losing some major wins because of court action, we knew we would have to build an effective litigation operation. So far, our awesome attorneys have filed 16 lawsuits on behalf of clients in state and federal court. And those lawsuits have not only accomplished meaningful legal outcomes, but they've also spurred the legislature to act. Like in the instance of our absolutely absurd long-term requirement that florists in Louisiana must have an occupational license. Thankfully, the legislature took action, and that is no longer the case here in Louisiana. We also saw that the legacy news media, was a problem too. They were shrinking, there were fewer outlets than ever before, and the ones that did exist, well, they weren't exactly friendly to our point of view. So we partnered with the Franklin News Foundation to help them launch the Center Square Louisiana. And today, that is the 3rd largest read news source in the state. That is meaningful impact. All of these components come together with effective policy research and grassroots and political advocacy and opposition research to create a powerful strategy all aimed at the right direction. And boy, do we need it, because we have a lot of work to do. You know, Huey Long's brother Earl, by the way, today is Earl's birthday. Huey Long's brother Earl was famous for saying, "One day, Louisiana's gonna get good government, and they ain't gonna like it." And you know, maybe Uncle Earl was right. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But here's what I do know. If we have any hope at all of accomplishing our long-term objectives, a durable freedom infrastructure will be essential. And let's be clear, this isn't a uniquely Louisiana story. Red, blue, purple, every state has entrenched special interests. Every state has big problems that need our solutions, and every state can benefit from a durable freedom infrastructure. I mean, think about it. What are the most impossible challenges that you face today in your state that could be better with an army of allies coming from all different perspectives aimed at the same change that we all need? So here's my challenge to you. I encourage you to think about it on the plane ride home, the car ride home, when you get back to your office. What can you do right now to start building the foundation for what will become your biggest win tomorrow? I promise you, you won't regret it. Thank you.